guys, we are back for another Dokkan battle video. So we're gonna go ahead and go through the new Wicked Bloodline side of the red zone. There's 5 new stages. That's what the Wicked Bloodline is. It's essentially 5 new stages of red zone like content, right? I'm gonna continue my challenge with all the 200% lead teams. And I'm gonna do the no item run through all 5 of the Wicked Bloodline red zone stages. With all the 200% leaders. I'm still, eventually, I'm going to go back and do Majin Vegeta. Majin Vegeta is definitely possible for all 3 red zones now. And I will give Raditz a try as well. We'll see. It's like, if Raditz just never gets hit, I guess it's possible, right? Okay, so the Wicked Bloodline red zone, I think, is pretty well designed in terms of the difficulty. They're all pretty close to the same level, except for Mecha Frieza and King Cold is like a joke of a fight. It's I'm gonna probably do like a power rankings of all the red zone stages. I'm gonna continue. I think I want more experience in the Wicked Bloodline side of it, so I'm gonna do some of these runs, maybe like the AGL Cell team or the Goku and Gohan team. Some of these teams, right? Get more experience in these Wicked Bloodline side to really iron out where they would be in terms of difficulty. But the Mecha Frieza and King Cold fight is a complete joke. Now, this first fight against Frieza can be tough. Frieza can do some things in here that actually are difficult. So, this phase right here, Frieza does do an AoE, right? Now, the only thing is, it is very early in the fight, right? So, that will allow you to probably tank it pretty comfortably most of the time, unless it's like an int character. But that's the thing, is you do want to bring a lot of int characters, since the strongest phase of Frieza, his full power Frieza phase, is tech. So you do want to use int characters here. So this second form Frieza is kind of built in to counteract your characters that you're going to bring for that final phase. But even still, this second form Frieza, he doesn't quite do enough damage to really scare off your int characters, right? Like, you guys know I love jumping down Namek Goku's throat, but I have done several runs where Namek Goku can just eat the super attack from second form Frieza, and we're fine, right? So even though it is an AoE, it can be problematic. Okay, so, basically of all of his forms, because you go first form, second form, third form, final form, then full power. So it's the longest red zone fight, I think. Longer even than the Shadow Dragons, I believe. Final form Frieza stacks attack. Every super attack that final form Frieza does buffs full power Frieza. So when you're doing runs in this fight, on any given run, Frieza might be way stronger than you've ever seen before, depending upon how many super attacks he shoots off in his AGL final form Frieza phase, right? You really want to keep that in mind. And then full power Frieza, he does, I believe, raise attack after he super attacks as well. So it can get to a point where that tech full power Frieza at the end can really start hitting as hard as Omega Shenron, which is definitely tough, but keep in mind, these stages are coming out now after we've experienced Red Zone Broly, Red Zone Omega for 8 months on JP, right? And we've had 8 months of characters who are, good for this level of fight. So even though we could still get caught here and there, it's like, it's way easier to do this sort of challenge nowadays, right? With just the huge, expansive, powerful rosters that a lot of these 200% teams have, right? The only unit I should really, I think, stop to mention before we move on to the next fight is the Resurrection F, Goku and Vegeta. They're a great unit to use against these big tech bosses, Bojack and this full power Frieza. I probably wouldn't use them too often type neutral, but against like a boss like this, they can be very good. That blue Vegeta can really be a killer towards tech bosses, right? He can eat super attacks, Rainbow Orb Change, and do pretty good damage. And then the last thing I should mention is Goku and Vegeta. Remember that they can easily get caught by full power Frieza. There's not really too much we could do about that, right? This is just one of the downsides of this challenge. Typically, I don't like to bring type disadvantage characters in these big red zone fights. It's not a good idea, but obviously we have to here. They could take normals from full power Frieza if transformed, but if they eat a super attack from full power Frieza, like we're gonna be dead to rights, right? So there we go. There is the full power Frieza fight. Alright, so next we are moving into the fight against Red Zone Cooler right here. Now, this Red Zone Cooler actually is, I think, a pretty difficult fight here. This Red Zone Cooler's damage right at the start of the fight is very, very high. I believe that this guy is pretty much the strongest, like, turn 1 boss. This AGL Cooler right here, there's not, like, a boss that gets stronger than this guy right here. So you do want to keep that in mind, right? I think maybe, like, you know, again, like, the last fight in one of these newer Extreme Super Battle Road stages, possibly. But, like, this guy, you really don't want to underestimate this guy. Cooler has pretty good type coverage, too, because you might want to come in here, bringing tech characters, right, to have type advantage against this AGL Cooler, who, again, is, like, the hardest hitting boss turn 1 in the game right now. Besides maybe, like, a non-boost character in the Fighting Spirit of the Saiyans and Pride of the Wicked Bloodline event, right? But, like, those are, like, more so gimmick stages, right? Like, you could use different strategies and stuff like that for that, right? Whereas Red Zone is, like, a traditional, like, go through the event and win, right? Like, this is more of, I guess, a traditional fight is what I'll call this compared to that event. In here, right, Cooler is AGL, so again, you'd want tech units to be type advantage against him to overcome his ridiculous damage at the start of turn, but the problem with that is Cooler is then int in his second phase, and in his second phase, Cooler, his super attack hits about as hard as Omega Shenron's, except the thing about Cooler is it's not like, you know, oh, we always know where his super attack is going to be, so that can be an issue for sure, right? But there's not really gimmicks with this Cooler fight. It's just, you know, start a turn right at the start. He is ridiculously powerful. You don't want to get lulled to sleep by how strong he can hit at the start of these fights. And then, you know, once you get to the int phase, keep in mind that he's hitting as hard as Omega Shenron, essentially, right? Now, in terms of the lineups we're using here, a lot of the characters, right, we're going to see in many of these Wicked Bloodline Red Zone fights, right? Tech God Goku is good against many of the enemies in here are movie bosses, right? There's 3 Cooler fights, which are movie boss, so Tech God Goku can be used in quite a few of these fights here. Obviously, Carnival LR Goku, stuff like that. Like, we can talk about them later, whenever they're strong. By the way, here, it's like, you know, sometimes you kind of want to be a little bit greedy with the Goku and Vegeta to try and get their hits in so you could transform, right? You guys know how that is. But I actually did use LR Goku and Piccolo in this fight. Especially against, like, an int enemy, they can be really good, right? They're very strong defensively turn 1, and then, you know, you can bust out their special beam cannon, which does crazy damage. Piccolo can heal, which can be good. There really is a lot of advantages to using Goku and Piccolo, especially in a fight where we would have type advantage with them. So Goku and Piccolo were able to definitely put in some work here, right? So at this point, you know, from this point on, it's just trying not to get caught by Cooler's super attack, which, again, is like a 1.6 million damage, like, bullseye missile shot that he could do, right? So you do want to be a bit cautious of that, but this is definitely a tough fight right here. I would say this is one of the hardest Red Zone fights. I don't know what my new top 5 would look like. Maybe something like Broly, the Metal Cooler Core, Omega, maybe this Final Form Cooler, then like Metal Cooler, then Bojack or something like that. Maybe something like that. I don't know. But there was the Final Form Cooler fight. Alright guys, now we're on the free pass stage of the red zone here. This is, or of the Wicked Bloodline red zone. This is the fight against Mecha, Frieza, and King Cold. This is very, like, pathetic. In this first phase, only the AGL Frieza soldier at the start can even super attack. None of the other Frieza soldiers that we see here can super besides that first one. So it's like, if you take him out quickly, then there's not actually anything that can be done, basically, from that point on, right? Like, they're doing pathetic damage that is not, like, they're just basically doing normals, right? It's just very, very weak stuff that we're going to be seeing from that point on. Now, then we get to the second fight of it, right? That's where things, of course, can get a little trickier, but even still, it's actually pretty crazy, right? Like, I don't mind them tossing in a free pass fight. And for them to do it sort of in the middle of this red zone edition, I guess is fine. But even once we make it to Mecha Frieza and King Cold, they're very easy, right? Like, Mecha Frieza's SA damage is only 780,000. Like, that's nothing, right? Like, Bojack at Super 17, right? Like, the stage 5 of those are hitting way harder than that. And then King Cold is also hitting in the 700,000s, right? And then the Frieza soldier that supers in the first phase, his damage is only 250,000. So basically none of these, like, if you're running these, like, crazy units who could tank, like, Red Zone Broly and shit like that, like, you don't have to worry in here, right? The only thing I guess you could say is that Frieza and King Cold's type coverage is good, right? Maybe you want to bring int characters to go against Frieza, but then, you know, King Cold is covering that, right? I guess. That's about it. Although you could maybe overload on STR units to try and get rid of King Cold quickly. Now, the other gimmick here, every turn, King Cold will 100% guaranteed seal a character, right? Which certainly can be frustrating, especially the character like Goku and Vegeta that have to super attack to get defense, as well as to transform, right? So it is imperative you focus on King Cold first. Even though Mecha Frieza hits a little bit harder, these characters getting sealed every turn, it's from King Cold and not from Mecha Frieza. So the second that this second phase starts, you just focus fire on King Cold, you wipe him out, and then once King Cold is done, the rest of the fight should go down fairly easily from that point on, because Mecha Frieza just flat out does not hit hard like other Red Zone bosses, right? Basically, Final Form Cooler and Full Power Frieza, the two previous bosses, their super attack damage is double what Mecha Frieza does, so it's not even, like, a consideration, really. All right, next we're moving on to the next fight here. This is against Metal Cooler. This is a tough fight. I think this is also a strong stage. This Cyclopean guard right here can do very dirty things. This guy's SA damage, I believe, is about 750,000. So he can do very big-time damage to you if you are not careful against this guy, right? And again, you know, this guy's got pretty decent type coverage, just like the Final Form Cooler fight, where, you know, this guy hits pretty hard turn 1, you bring STR characters, and then you become at a disadvantage for the second phase against Metal Cooler, who is AGL. So you don't want to bring STR units into this fight whatsoever, right? Which means you're not really going to have type advantage for this guy, which is why this guy has given a lot of people difficulties. But, you know, you can attack debuff him, right? Some of these red zone stages do kind of, they give you that built-in weakness, right? Red zone Omega, red zone Broly, this Metal Cooler fight, and then even the last fight in here, the Metal Cooler core fight, all of them, you know, you could sort of get away with that attack debuff ability. So you don't want to sleep on that. They've given that to a lot of good characters lately too, right? Final Form Cooler has it, LR Goku and Vegeta have it, LR Metal Cooler have it. 3 of the 4 major, like, you know, Dokkan Fest exclusive level LRs of this celebration, 3 of them have attack debuffing, right? So at the very least, you can make use out of that. As you guys can see from the damage that the guard did right there too, he does lower your attack and your defense as well. So, you know, you do want to be a little bit careful of that. Okay, so we'll be able to finish off the guard right there. I was able to greed out a couple more hits on Goku and Vegeta, which of course you do want to do. You know, when they transform, they can be an ace character, right? Actually, like a top 3 unit in the game. But it's once their initial 3-turn passive wears off and they're not transformed, they become a fraud, right? They're just like the 7th anniversary LRs before they transform without their guard. It's the same thing, right? Okay. So now we get to Metal Cooler. Metal Cooler is a very, very tough boss. This guy hits incredibly hard, right? His normal attacks are, yeah, he has the same damage as Omega. His normals hit about as hard as Omega, and his super attack hits about as hard as Red Zone Broly, right? So that should give you context for how hard Metal Cooler hits, which is pretty tough. But you know, his gimmick is not the craziest in the world, right? Like, Omega, I think, is still a tougher fight because Omega hits so hard that you want to bring your physical characters to counteract Omega's strength. But then, you know, you have type disadvantage against that middle phase, STR Sin. Whereas in here, it's not like we don't have type disadvantage in the first phase with our tech characters, right? So, that's a big thing there. Now, Metal Cooler does heal a pretty significant amount of HP every turn. I believe, is it 12 or 13%? He heals 13% HP every turn once he's under 90% HP. So you are going to have to deal with him healing, what is it, like 7 million HP per turn? It's something like that, right? That you're going to have to deal with every single turn. So you are going to have to make sure that you're bringing high damage characters that can blast through his healing, right? Like, even on this turn, you can see he's healing 14 million HP this turn because he's doing a heal at the start and a heal at the end. So, again, you do want to make sure you're really racking up the damage, but that's where, like, you know, Goku and Vegeta, we transform with them, and they could triple super, triple crit, right? They have guaranteed crits at 24 key. You can begin doing really major damage to this guy, but he can hang around for quite a while if he's going to heal 14 million HP per turn, right? So you do have to keep that in mind. But that's where a lot of these strongest units in the game, Carnival, Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks, Goku and Vegeta. Remember, Goku and Vegeta, they have their flaws, but with their godlike link set and their godlike team, a lot of these runs were a breeze, right? This Metal Cooler, this is a tough fight. It took me 1 try, right? A lot of these are tough fights, and they still only took 1 try. Just because of the strength of the team, right? You know, we have so many options we can perfectly mix and match. Again, like, just perfect options for what we need for these fights, right? So, there was the Metal Cooler fight. We, you know, start to overpower him with a lot of the damage we're able to do, right? Carnival Goku, after reviving, you know, he gets that crit chance, and then we're just able to do a lot of damage with Goku and Vegeta, right? Guaranteed crits at 24 keys, so they'll do a lot of damage to Cooler here. Alright guys, now we're moving on to the newest stage here. This is the fight against the Metal Cooler Core. This is a very difficult stage. Many people have been lulled to sleep by this stage because Final Form Cooler, to call him a hard counter to this stage, does not quite explain how much Final Form Cooler obliterates this stage. And his best friend, his best partner, Easy STR Cooler, also obliterates the stage. So you come in here with your Final Form Cooler team and you piece this guy up pretty easily. But once you start using different setups, you will quickly see how difficult this fight is. I think this is the second hardest Red Zone fight right here. I think this is tougher than Omega, tougher than Red Zone Bojack, and tougher than the earlier stages here in the Wicked Bloodline Red Zone. So the way this fight works, the Metal Cooler army right here at the start, you have to go through 3 full turns. You can't blitz them. They have infinite health. It's just survive for 3 turns, right? Again, I like this. This is a different gimmick for this fight compared to a lot of the Red Zone fights. That's good, right? I like them kind of like doing these different gimmicks too. So we do have to just survive. We can't kill. That does work out positively though, because that means we can get our hits in on Goku and Vegeta, get our stacks in with some characters, right? It can be an advantage that we don't blitz this fight in an instant, right? So all these characters that need the stack, or, you know, Final Form Cooler that needs to do 1,000,000 attacks, but he kills the boss too quickly to get all of his attacks in, that's not an issue in this fight, right? So that's really, really good. The other thing is that Metal Cooler, again, the Metal Cooler army, you can attack debuff them, right? We already mentioned some of the best newest LRs, Goku and Vegeta, Metal Cooler, Final Form Cooler, all debuff, right? So you can lock the Metal Cooler army down a little bit with attack debuffs, which can be very, very good, right, doing that. And then, again, it's just sort of survive the first 3 turns. You know, we're going to want to hope that Goku and Vegeta get a lot of attacks targeted on them early, so that they are able to sort of make their transformation, because they really become so powerful once they get their transformation, and then we could use their active skill for the guaranteed crits for the turn, right? And their defense becomes more consistent with the guaranteed additional, with the 70% chance to additional super, right? Things just become a lot better once they're able to transform. So it's like a good opening turn where, you know, one of these Metal Cooler army units attacks a lot in that first phase can be really, really solid. The other thing, too, is they do attack a lot. Yeah, the Metal Cooler army attacks 11 times per turn. That's a lot, right? So it's like it is set up in a way to help Goku and Vegeta get, I think, a real advantage by having them attack just that many times. Again, I feel like that's a huge number for these enemies to be attacking right at the start of the fight. Okay, so we get through the Metal Cooler army, right? You just got to survive your 3 turns. Oh, the Metal Cooler army, they can double super as well. So these first 3 turns, you could eat 6 super attacks from them, which could be a problem. Then we get to the Metal Cooler Core. Now, this guy is very tough, right? His attacks, he hits slightly weaker than AGL Metal Cooler from normals, but then this guy's super attack, he hits over Omega, he hits harder than Omega Shenron, harder. And then this guy gives himself 30% attack for the turn after he supers. So what happens is this guy will super, and then he's the hardest hitting, like, normal attacking Red Zone boss after that, right? Full Power Frieza also has a similar gimmick where his damage, again, could potentially be through the roof depending upon how many supers EGL Final Form Frieza does. And then, of course, he does increase his attack after he supers his full power. But the Metal Cooler Core just has a higher natural, like, damage attack stat anyway. So this guy, you know, if he supers right at the start, he can absolutely wear you down so fast with his damage. This guy hits really hard. The other thing he does is he can seal a character every turn, as you guys can see. Sealing is a very tough mechanic. Like, this is the end of the fight. It's a very tough mechanic to deal with at the end of the fight. Now, I believe the way... Okay, so Goku and Vegeta, right? I believe how they work a unit like that. So Goku and Vegeta, that was a misplay by me, I think, because Goku and Vegeta get 50% when they do their 18 key super. I believe if we get 18 key, they still would get that defensive buff. But even though they're not actually doing the super, but they would not be getting the defensive buff from their super attack effects, right? So in the instance of Goku and Vegeta, who, again, you know, with them, they get that extra buff on 18 key. I do think that's activated if we hit 18 key from their passive. So that was a minor misplay by me right there. But this is why sealing can be tough, right? Look at all of these characters now that are getting huge like defensive increases. The gods have their attack break and their huge defense increasing. Carnival Goku is stacking. Goku and Vegeta need the super, right, in order to even transform. So it's like this guy sealing every turn is a major concern. He can seal the wrong characters over and over and over, and he could just kill you, right? There's not, like, if he just chooses to seal the wrong characters for you every turn, you could be screwed. You know, that's just how it is. This guy's damage can be absolutely crazy. See, again, you don't want to get lulled to sleep about how easy or hard this fight is just by coming in here and soloing him with Final Form Cooler. This guy is tough. When he gets that super attack off, for the rest of the turn, the damage that he's putting out is very, very hard. He is doing a lot of damage, so you want to be very, very cautious about that. But, you know, we're able to make it through. Carnival Goku's Revive, all the strong options we have here. There we go. There is the first team we've used to sweep the entire Wicked Bloodline Red Zone. Again, I'm going to go through all these different 200% teams. We're sweeping all the red zones. I've been working on all of them, you know, at the same time, so we'll get some of these out soon. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.